Hey, what is up YouTube? Welcome to today's video, and we were finally able to get our character on track and finished after a super long play session. So I'm going to go over my league start journey, how I upgraded my character, because I do know there's some people here who followed my build. And like I said, every single time I put out a league start guide, I will always play the build. So there's never going to be any sort of baiting or stuff like that. So we were able to do the T17s ourselves. Now, we were carried a little bit by the belt of choice. However, this build is viable for T17s as long as you kind of have to rely on Headhunter buffs, but that is just the nature of bows. Now, this league was a very interesting journey purely because of the currency auction house and the removal of item quantity. Now, a lot of people were not really sure exactly what to think about it. And then on top of all that, they also added a very intriguing league mechanic known as Clash of Clans Junior Raid Class style. So, first off, campaign-wise, it was a disaster. And this is purely because of what happened in this clip. Now, the campaign was still finished relatively fast, but I did have to choose Oak. Now, if you look at this clip, I was happily going on my way, finishing the first act, and then kind of disaster struck. Now, when the Bear's war cry, it automatically disconnected you. Now, this was supposed to be a renderer issue, so I was way back in queue at like 10,000. So it took a while to finish it. But worse yet is that I had to help Oak, because before people started realizing that it was the renderer issue that was causing all the crashes, the only way a lot of people were able to get through the campaign was to help Oak, because if you fought Oak as the bandit, he would constantly war cry and disconnect you from the game. So that was the first sign that things were a little bit off in this league. Now, we still finished it in around under 4 hours. I did duo with someone, and duo leveling does help a lot, especially when you can split the zones and someone does the extra skill point quest. Now, the first thing we noticed was that the act bosses were dropping significantly less loot. And then next up, we also kind of noticed that some of the rares were dropping nothing but gold, which is very strange. Now, I did end up ignoring the league mechanic. Now, the reason I ignored the league mechanic was because I had no idea it was going to be time gated. But if you are starting off, you should definitely do the town, because the league mechanic is time gated by the ores and the bars you smelt. So you should make sure to get it started right away. So my town is a little bit behind. My workers, I think, are around like level 6 or 7. But I did ignore the campaign or the league mechanic for the majority of the campaign and Atlas progression, which I do regret. Now, the main thing is I wasn't sure what I was going to get. Was I going to get 1 chaos from the reward from sending off my shipment, or was I going to get a mirror like this person did? So kind of a RNG thing in terms of what you were going to get. Now, I was playing Elemental Hit of the Spectrum, and there was a lot of interesting questions about how do I upgrade my gear. This is probably the number one thing that people don't really know, which is I have 50 chaos on my build. Exactly what should I buy? Now, I prioritize buying 2 tamings. Now, the reason behind getting 2 tamings is purely because it fixes all your resists, and this build doesn't have that much percent increased elemental damage. Now, taming provides an absurd amount of increased elemental damage of hits if you have a lot of ailments on the mobs. And since I was playing Warden, I had Chill, Freeze, Shock, and Scorch. So this was an incredible piece of gear, and it also got 40% all elemental resistances, which is an insane amount throughout the campaign and early act progression. Now, next up, I bought the Restless Defiance, and this gave me Endurance Charge and Onslaught effect. I did buy a Hyrie's Ire to test out, but it cost a lot more. I think the Hyrie's cost around 3 to 4 divines, and I did feel like the Restless Defiance was a little bit better in mapping both for the movement speed from the Onslaught effect and the Endurance Charge and the base armor on the chest. So overall, I felt that the Restless was a better, a better chest option altogether. Now, I did end up finding a 6-link corrupted bow, and I did eventually switch to this. So this, I've just bought a 6-link spine bow and then tried to link it. Now, the reason behind trying to craft on a 6-link spine bow is that opens up your chest option a little bit more to not having to buy a 6-link. And a lot of these cases at the very start of the league, there's just no 6-link Hyries or 6-link Duressos. And the Black Morgan beast that everyone was using last league was supposedly bugged for a while, so it would not work out. Now, this bow I currently have is not really optimal as it does not have any sort of crit chance, but since I'm running a Headhunter build, I can live with it. Now, this 6-link bow was enough to do the whole campaign and did all the Atlas and the voice zones. I did have to buy an Uber Elder carry. I tried out an Uber Elder, but the Uber Elder kind of owned me because I thought the build would do a lot more damage, but it turns out that when the mob moves around a lot, Wardens are not super good at that, especially when your damage is on the low end and you don't have enough time to put on all your ailments. Now, I purchased an additional arrow quiver with high life for 30C, and this quiver, this one was 25 chaos. It's kind of crazy how cheap it was. Now, additional arrow is not a super crazy rare roll, and I think that life is way more common now on gear because they added an extra tier. So this quiver, which I think should honestly go for a lot more than 25 chaos, was incredibly cheap and a steal. Now, the reason we want the additional arrow is because it just provides you with so much more clear. Since we are a Warden, we only have 4 projectiles. We have 2 from the passive tree, and then 1 from the quiver, and then 1 from the, what's it called, a base skill. Now, you can also get some on the bow, but that is very difficult to obtain at this stage of the league. And 4 arrows versus 3 is a big difference. So make sure when you get through the campaign to immediately try to grab that quiver for the additional arrows. Now, I did buy a fledgling. Now, a lot of people don't know, but fledgling is still 60% more damage. So if you read the line there, it says projectile attack hits deal 20% less damage at the start of their movement, dealing up to 60% more damage to targets as the projectile travels farther. So the Deadeye node is only 30% and supposedly it stacks with this helm. Now, since I am a Warden and I don't have the far shot node at all, this helm gives me 60% more damage, and since I was mainly farming Legion in Jungle Valley, this synergizes very well because the projectiles will be traveling far and doing way more damage, and I did feel the upgrade. Now, the fledgling was surprisingly expensive. Everyone else told me that it was going to be way cheaper because it was a guaranteed heist boss drop, but I did not find that to be the case. Now, what did I exactly farm? So basically, I finished the Atlas 115 out of 115 with 4 Void Stones. And I did split the Atlas with a friend, and it is a lot faster to duo it because you can just TP each other into the map. Now, I ended up trying to do Legion Jungle Valley, but a lot of people ask me, is Legion really good still? Now, the answer to that is that Legion is primarily very good if you are around the first person to get there. Legion emblems, for instance, they are, I think the Mariketh emblem when I last checked was 15 chaos or so. Let me go see. So the Legion emblems, when I was selling them, was around, so you can see right now the Mariketh emblems 13 chaos, 4, 4, 4. So Legion has been pretty farmed out. So the 6 links too are way cheaper. Now, I would say the majority of my currency I made was just from selling 6 links from the Geomancer's incubators. If you hit an evasion base, they were going for like 1.5 to 2 divines, or armor evasion base. And then the Mariketh emblems was also going for like 40 chaos. And this was back when divines were around 80 chaos. So let's see. So divines now are 95. So, or 105, I think those were some price fixers. So early on, Legion is incredibly good. But the main problem was I couldn't buy any scarabs. Like, it was very strange. The scarabs were just not dropping earlier in the game. I don't really know if there was a bug going on or what was happening. But you would think that you could go to the exchange and try to buy a Legion scarab. But let's see if that's the case. However, if you go here, chaos, oh, there's some stock now, but you can see the prices are pretty exorbitant. And earlier on, there was absolutely no supply to be found. Now, this made me have to do Jungle Valley with Legion and Beyond on the Atlas tree, and I just put Legion on the map device. I was trying to do a little bit of Delimir, but I found out that simulacrums were pretty much worthless, and that was because for the, what's it called, finishing off your Atlas, you actually got a free simulacrum. Now, I'm not sure how much simulacrum is now. It's around like 32 chaos. So I did not really prioritize getting more simulacrum splinters. Now, I did have a lot of trouble with doing the map pool, as it always happens every league. I had to take singular focus, and then I did use T17 maps to build back the map pool. T17s are very, very easy compared to last league in terms of clearing the map. I think the mobs got like a 50% health reduction, along with a nerf to their damage. However, the main issue is that the T17 maps are very, very annoying to roll. And this is especially the case if your build has a lot of mods that you can't do, which is one of the things I kind of don't like about the LE hit of Spectrum Warden, is that you are unable to do ailment avoidance, which is very, very common as a map mod that pops up. So what would I farm right now? I'm honestly not too sure. Essence is always good. Ultimatum could be okay if the catalysts are expensive. And I was even trying out some ultimatums in T17s now that the monsters drop loot. But this thing here is like 4 chaos each. So ultimatum could potentially be something very, very good that you could do right now, because maybe Legion is a little too flooded at the moment. Now, overall, what do I think? The Chisel situation was ridiculous, and something was definitely wrong with the loot that was dropping. Now, you can mention that they got rid of Quant, so we didn't have Goldworm and Ventors, but something was definitely strange about the drops. And I think I got to level 95 and found probably like 10 chisels, or not 95, 92, and found around 10 chisels. The easiest way to get chisels and how I constantly got chisels was I bought them after putting in a Kirak mission. So if you put in a mission, it will reset, and then you can find chisels. You sell 20 of them for 8. Let's see if the chisel situation has gone a little bit better. And it's 2-to-1, which is pretty low, or is pretty high at this rate. Now, earlier in the league, I think I had trouble even buying them at 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. Now, everyone's selling it at 2-to-1. You can pretty much make money just by flipping it from Kirak. Now, the currency exchange was amazing, but the main problem early on was that there was not enough supply. It does seem like a lot of people are still doing bulk sales on the trade website with their stash tabs. Now, this is pretty much old habits die hard, but I do think that later on, the currency exchange should become a lot better. There are a little bit of a quirky UI mess that I think it just kind of looks ugly in a weird sense. Like if you go look at scarabs and you try to look at stuff, it's just all over the place. And the funny thing is that it's not even in alphabetical order. So it's Breach, Cartography, the Titanic, Influence, Sulfite. So it's just all over the place. So you can type in the search line down here. Now, say you want to buy a scarab. So let's X out of it. So this thing doesn't really save all the time. No. So if you want to buy divines, well, now if you choose chaos, I guess it always saves it. But basically, the UI could use a little bit of work, and it's kind of confusing. This thing gets updated, but it doesn't seem like it's updated in real time. And you can't really see the bid ask spread that easily from here. And the 10 order slots will limit people from placing every single item onto the currency exchange. I do think that the currency exchange and the trade website will kind of coexist, which is kind of interesting because we're going to split the supply of the leagues in 2 places. So if we want to find something, we have to check the currency exchange and then kind of check the trade website to see what has the better deal. Now, in my estimation, I think the trade website was a little bit better, but then you have to factor in the inconvenience of going on a trade website and then messaging a bunch of people could potentially be price fixing. Now, the league mechanic, I have to give props to GGG, is surprisingly well designed and thought out. Even the UI, which is definitely their weak point, was well done, and it does feel like fun progressing through the town, getting your shipments done, getting your people leveled up, choosing the right people, rehiring people, building stuff. There is a lot of traveling around in the town to go to different places, but they have a nice little UI for you, and you can even check on the progress by talking to Jonah and using Manage Town, and you can see what exactly is going on. Now, I haven't really done any disenchanting, as I kind of left my town behind to burn while I did the campaign and the axe. And there is one thing that's incredibly overtuned, and it is tornadoes. I can say that we all hate tornadoes. The tornadoes are kind of ridiculous. Tornadoes come from the bismuth ore. If you encounter the bismuth ore in the map, the tornadoes can still follow you around even while you're in another area, like in the boss zone. And you're just constantly looking out for these tornadoes. And then the bismuth ore also turns your map into some weird dark mode. So it's just incredibly strange. I do think that there's going to take a little bit of adjustment to the game, and I do think that the loot is a little bit light in T16s. I think T17s are still very much mandatory, especially with the mods. And the chisel situation is extremely concerning, to say the least. I think that these chisels will probably be very expensive because I think they come from invitations. So the supply of them will probably not be that high. Oh, I still can't even look it up. So we'll have to see what happens towards the end of the game. I think that GGG will probably do more of a balanced patch regarding the currency exchange if it does make it into the base game. And then they also remove the flash suffix for attack speed. So lots of bug fixes that has to go around. But overall, I had a blast at the league start. League mechanics seems well done. Chisels should probably drop a little bit more. Maybe it's also bugged because they kind of tied the chisels to the maps and changed the drop rates around. But it did feel like loot was not really dropping overall outside of what's it called, guaranteed loot tiles and chests. But thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know down in the comments below how long you played at League Star. I did play for 35 hours, or had a stream for 35 hours of constant breaks. But thanks for watching, everyone. And I hope you find more divines than me, and see you next time. Bye.